Hey everyone, I hope you're well. Today, I want to talk about Horizon because Horizon's pick rate has skyrocketed almost out of nowhere. Usually, a Legend's pick rate will rise and fall over time depending on nerfs and buffs and overall updates in the game. But what's really strange about Horizon is there haven't been any buffs for her. There haven't been any in-game events. There hasn't been anything to encourage people to play Horizon. In the past, you'd see a rise in pick rate if perhaps an heirloom came out, they got a really good update, or there was some kind of in-game lore event like the Bangalore or Bloodhound lore events we've had recently. But a little while after that in-game content, the pick rate will kind of slowly go back down to the rate just a little bit higher than what it was before. In Horizon's case, there hasn't been anything in-game, and despite that, her pick rate only seems to be rising. It's not falling. Ever since end of March, Horizon's pick rate has continued to rise and rise and rise to astronomical heights. Now, it doesn't mean she's the best legend in the game. She's not the most picked legend in the game, but if it keeps rising, she may rival Octane and Wraith, who have forever been the longest, most picked legends in Apex Legends. So how can her pick rate keep rising despite there not being a buff? Well, it really comes down to a lot of high-profile players playing her, like Asu or Imperial Hell. These high-profile players who have a lot of influence in the community can play a legend, say, hey, they're good, and then a lot of other high-tier players may put more effort into it, and overall you see this sort of ripple effect that goes all the way throughout the community, and it gets to the point where someone who may not even watch Asu or Imperial Hell, but has a friend of a friend that watches them, ends up playing Horizon because their friend likes them. You know, it's like one point of influence can ripple out and just make a massive difference and end up pushing a legend really high in the pick rate charts. Now, this wouldn't work in all cases. You couldn't do this with every legend because the good thing about Horizon is despite her nerf at the end of Season 7, she's still good. She still has some really good movement potential. Her ultimate's pretty good. Her tactical is okay in some situations. And overall, she has a very balanced, well-rounded kit that's useful in all tiers of play. She's really easy to get hang of, but her abilities have a lot of high-level potential, especially where movement is concerned. And high-level movement in this game is one of the most fun and most enjoyable things about Apex Legends. You may notice that a lot of good players and high-level players love gravitating towards the movement-based legends because not only can you do some incredible things with them, but they're also very fun to play. So Horizon is a great example of a legend that is already sitting there in the background, waiting, ready for a moment like this, where she just rises in pick rate simply because of community engagement with this legend. I think it's really exciting and interesting to see this happen. At the end of the day, I feel like most legends in Apex Legend aren't really necessarily overpowered or underpowered. I think at this point, every legend can do well. Some do better than others. Like I say, movement legends kind of have the upper hand in most situations, but it really wouldn't take much for any legend to do well in any tier of play. They are all fairly balanced. And I do think that, let's say, Asu or Imperial Hell started playing Bangalore a ton and started saying Bangalore is super useful in top tier ALGS play, then you're going to see a lot of people play Bangalore. Bangalore's pick rate would rise massively as well because she's not a bad legend. Her abilities are pretty decent when used right. However, if you take a legend like Crypto or Watson, I don't know if the same results would apply because whilst their abilities may be useful in some situations, perhaps more in Crypto's case, they're not that fun to play, and that's the issue. You need a legend that is good in all tiers of play, fun to play. Those are like the perfect criteria to make a legend rise in pick rate if someone in the community with a high enough influence were to say, hey, play this legend, right? So it makes me wonder, like, how could Respawn use this information to encourage people to try new legends and change up the meta a bit? Because the meta really is only that way because community involvement. It's what people have fallen into. It's what people like. They play the legends they like. They play the legends that they think are good. And sometimes all it takes is some influence around that to change the meta without even changing any buffs, without adding any nerfs, anything. The meta could change simply based on community evolving over time. So what could Respawn do to influence this, to mix things up, to create a bit more of an interesting play experience for all players for all tiers. Imagine if you jump into a game and you start seeing a bunch more fuses all of a sudden, or a bunch more horizons, or a bunch more revenants, or whatever legend, just to feel like a bit of a change. I feel like it could be a really healthy way to see the true balancing of legends, because sometimes some legends have abilities that are actually pretty overpowered in some situations, but nobody really realizes. I think Rampart's turret is pretty strong, but nobody really seems to agree, and I think that if you suddenly started seeing a bazillion Ramparts around, Respawn would be like, hang on a minute, we should probably tone this down instead of buffing it, which it looks like they may be doing soon. Same goes for if suddenly a bunch of people play Fuse, could that change things? Could they then think about changing him in some way? It's like the players need to experience a lot of that legend in their game to see how it would really change the meta. I think it would be really interesting to see if Respawn implemented an approach that they're using in Apex Mobile right now. In Apex Mobile, every few days, there is a challenge for you to complete that can unlock rewards for free. And in these challenges, you have to play a specific legend, whether it's Caustic, Wraith, Octane, Mirage, Bangalore. It encourages players to try these legends to get free rewards. Now, not everybody is going to do these challenges. If they're just like a free Apex pack or something there, then it could be something that people are like, okay, I'll play this legend for a bit. And if they focus on choosing those legends that they know internally are pretty decent and balanced, but nobody's really paying much attention to, for example, like Loba, like Bangalore, like potentially even Mad Maggie, like how could that change the overall experience in a game? Could that bring up some underrated legends into the spotlight? Could it mix up the high-level play meta enough where you're actually seeing these legends in high-level play? We don't really know, but I feel like it would be a very interesting thing to see, and I'd love to see Respawn implement it. I'd love to see them offer some kind of fairly frequent challenges or mini events or mini trackers where you're focused on playing a specific legend, because it would definitely change up the play experience and give a different legend to have a chance in the meta. And you may end up seeing that legend stays in the meta, similar to how Horizon has now gone into the meta. And I think she's going to stay there for a long time because her abilities are really fun and really viable. I think this is a much better approach. Taking legends that they know are underrated and giving them some kind of event or content to encourage people to play is better than giving low-tier legends, low-picked legends, a buff and an heirloom in the same season. Wattson, Crypto and Rampart all received this treatment, and whilst it did boost their pick rate for a while, the pick rate just drops down after interest dies and people go back to their mains, because these legends, whilst their abilities can be useful, they're not as fun. Like I said at the start of this video, if you have a fun legend that can also be viable, then you have the recipe for a legend that could be in the meta. I would love to see it. I'd love to see Respawn take this approach instead of the heirloom update approach, because it hasn't worked. Wattson, Crypto and Rampart are still amongst the lowest picked legends in the game, and I really do think it comes down to them not being fun to play, them having too many intricacies that are hard to get into. A lot of high-tier players are going to focus on players that perform well for them. If they just start playing a really low-tier player that feels clunky, feels like so many more little intricacies have to be focused on, it takes away from their aim and movement, how are they going to say, hey, this is a good legend that other people should play? So, I don't know. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this topic. I think it's really interesting to see Horizon rise up into the pick rate, rise up into the higher tier pick rate. And I'd really love to see Respawn experiment with the kind of content that they release to encourage people to play underrated legends instead of just trying to boost up the legends that are already at the bottom of the barrel, because it seems like there's no hope for these legends. What do you think? Let me know. I'll see you in the comments. Cheerio!